What is going on, guys? We are here today with Richard Yam, who came first place at yesterday's Treasure Cup with Core TCG, excuse me. So congratulations, Richard, again on your first place. Finally a win. Well deserved, you know, it was coming, a long time coming. So I think now you take first place in terms of points for North American players. So again, another big congratulations. You are one of the most decorated players out there right now. So we are lucky enough to get a little bit of a Q&A here from Richard with the deck that he played. So he didn't play the standard event Zoro. He played the same type of Zoro that he was playing in the other couple events that he topped. So Richard, I'm just going to let you take this away. You can go through the deck and I'll shoot some questions at you after.
Yeah, so we can go for the deck list first. There's been changes since last time because last time was pre kind of like the ban list, and then this time it's a post ban list. So I like things in like to be natural, like kind of OCD. So we start with like the Whitebeard side. Each one has a captain. So we have captain 1 Newgate and 1 Luffy, along with 4 of the first mates, 4 Rush Zoros, 4 Marcos, 2 each 2Ks, which were so I eventually played 12 2Ks still. I think that's still the right number just because you need more defense, especially since the fact it's not like a event list where you have like guard points and stuff to protect you later on. So we need as many 2Ks as possible. And then the rest you kind of see in the past. You saw the Harutas, and the Vista they're still great cards, low value cards that you still get. You can play and kind of like swing for 5s eventually. And then on the right here, you have the Fusa Village people, still the best 12 cards for red. You can't really cut it in this build, but you can always cut Niagara in some of their builds. But this is what kind of makes the deck really functional. This is like the power cards. A lot of times you actually might mulligan, but we'll talk about that later. But essentially, same kind of style, not many high-end cards, more low to the ground, more like cost-effective cards that, you know, is what Zoro does, is like boost them up and then get the value out of them. It's a couple of reasons, like a couple of changes you saw, like 1 Newgate here. We were expecting like a lot more Whitebeard, so the Newgate is actually pretty good in the Whitebeard matchup, not good against the yellow, but I mean, because of the 1, you know, if we see against yellow, you know, too bad, whatever. But at the end of the day, like it's still a great card to have. I think because like right now the new Yamato list or Yamato yellow leader, they can't play big mobs, so this is okay against that deck because they can't just drop a 10 drop against you. So overall, like it's still a powerful card, and that's why it's limited to 1. Other than that, there's really no other like huge major changes here. I think you see the Sanjis, there's 2Ks, but you know, kind of like the old list, you still kind of play effectively and play. You have to be more or less aggressive with this deck.
Yeah, I don't think we actually played the Sanjis in the last video that you did, and that was just strictly to keep the 15-15, right? You want 15 Nami targets, 15 Izo targets. So I think you cut, or because, I can't remember what it was, but something got cut, so you had to add in a 2K counter, and you needed a Straw Hat as well, so Sanji came in.
Yeah.
So do you ever play the Sanji, or is it strictly just a 2K?
It's also there in case you play against a Nami deck, but that rarely ever happens, so it is there, but it's strictly 2K, along with Jozo. Like these two, that's why they're both at 2-up. They're strictly 2K with a small chance of playing them. Whereas like the Brook 2K, you actually play them a lot, just because like it's like 2K body and gets 2 on, so it's really cost effective. But these two are strict 2Ks for sure. Okay,
so my first question to you is just going to be, why aren't people doing well with this deck? Because this deck has been out, like I posted the first video with yourself and Deep when Deep won and you came 4th.
Mm-hmm.
Like I posted that video almost a month ago, and this list has been out, you know, people outside of our group of friends haven't been playing it or have tried it, and you'll see it at events, but none of them in any top 16s. So why do you think that is?
I think because once people actually start playing it, they realize like they're really vulnerable, because it's not like event build, it's where you can just fall back on your event cards to defend your life and, you know, protect your end game. This deck takes a lot of setup, a lot of like you can't just like just, you know, do one action and then your next turn you just hope for the best. It's a well thought out plan, because like I said, it's low to end, so you have to make sure all your guys are getting it effectively, but at the same time you still have to set up for your next turn. And this takes a lot of work. It's not as straightforward. Like even event build, it's actually very more straightforward. You know, your turn 1 you play your searchers. You know, turn 2 you might play the Dawn or something. Turn 5 you drop your Marco. This deck is not turn 5. You don't always drop a Marco. It's not. Honestly, probably a lot of times you don't drop the Marco. So So it takes a lot more thinking, a lot of strategy. Each matchup is different. You actually put in the work to really understand how this deck functions. A lot of people see this deck and go, oh yeah, just go face. That is completely incorrect. You can't just go face all the time. Like knowing to trade board, right? Knowing to actually, like I said, set up the next turn. Like you have to count how many attacks you have this turn, how many attacks you have next turn, how many cards that's going to take. So it's like kind of like blackjack card kind of thing. Like you gotta know what you're doing and how you're setting for next turn. So it's a lot of work. A lot of people just play this deck and they just kind of like die because like they run out of gas, not because like they have cards. They don't have cards, but they don't have like field presence, or they're just like too far behind because they swung improperly. So it takes a lot of work, and a lot of people don't know how to get there. But from our Discord group, like I give a lot of tips and a lot of help, advices on like how to play this deck. So this is part of the reason why I still play this deck, because I don't particularly think this is the best deck. I think this is a weaker deck than Event Zoro. But at the same time, because if you put in the work, you're able to have very good results with it. So, and also it's very consistent versus the Event Zoro list.
So you wouldn't ever consider playing the Event Zoro at this point?
I think the Event Zoro list, like I said, it's less consistent. So in like 9 to 10 rounds, you will likely see a brick hand. This guard points event list, the guard points fire fist, cards that you just can't play turn 1. Like if you don't see your one drop searchers, you might miss a drop. Like I've seen the Zoro when I was playing a Zoro mirror match, when that Zoro was playing event list, he went turn 1 pass, turn 2, put 3 Dawn in Zoro, swing and lead. I'm like, that's what happens when you play event Zoro, because you will see hands where you just can't play,
right?
And you just lose basically because you have nothing to do. So it's definitely a more powerful deck. It's very well rounded, and it has very high highs and again like very low lows. But sometimes you just need low lows as well. But if I would consider taking it if I felt like the highs, like the power is much more like I just need it because I don't care about my low lows, and essentially roll the dice on my consistency. I mean, it still plays like the 12 searchers, but there's still a lot of hands where you just can't do a lot with it. So I might switch to it now just because like I need to play something different, and
because you finally got your win. So.
Finally got my win this deck, so I'm very I can kind of move forward with it. But I don't think either build is wrong. I just think you just got to pick a style. Event is a little bit more straightforward in my opinion. This one I have a lot of fun like learning it, and then as I'm playing it, like every game is still different. I'm working like very hard during the match to like set up and like work out the math, the calculations. So like part of me playing card games is because I enjoy a card game, right? So I don't want to play a deck where I just have to slam. No shade to Whitebeard players, but like Whitebeard is like you kind of slam one or two things and you pass the turn. This deck you have so much fun because there's so many different branches of opportunity, like lines.
Right. There's a lot of lines. Yeah.
Very many lines, and like you have to figure out which is the right one, and then you always have to pivot because your opponent's doing something different or a new variable change. So I think this is like a very fun deck overall to play.
No, for sure. What would you say the hardest matchups are? Now that, because I know last time you did say yellow was a tough matchup because of the triggers, but I feel like your opinion since then has changed because it has been about a month now. So what would you say is the most difficult? Yeah,
so like my opinion of yellow has changed, especially for category. Obviously, if I win Daryl, I now choose to go second, and going first is like really really awful. And I kind of lowered some of like the higher end counts, so that really helps the matchup a bit more and potentially like hitting them fast and hitting them harder like, earlier on. My worst matchup right now is still Whitebeard. Obviously, that's why like you see 48% or 250% like top rates with Whitebeard. Mostly because like it's consistent, it's very straightforward. They have like they have 4 Marcos, which kills about like I think like 80 to 90% of this deck. Although it's my hardest matchup, I have changed my strategy towards it because 2 things. One, we saw the ban list. This actually did a huge number on this deck because what Whitebeard lost was 3 Newgates, 3 Marcos, and 3 Rat Beams. So the original tactic was to do a bunch of like little small 6 attacks, and then a lot of Newgate players kind of have like too many brick cards. And when I say brick cards, I mean like the Newgates. Even Rat Beam becomes a 1 mana 1K for them because I do a lot of 6s. And then the blocker Marco, which is actually a very powerful card, it's actually worse for them because if they play it, it just becomes a blocker, a 4-mana blocker that blocked 6k, right? And then when it does block, you can actually swing 5k into it, and then you get more and more value. So they actually lost a lot of cards that were good for this matchup, but bad overall for them. So the strategy did change a lot for against Whitebeard. So it's actually I can't do the same strategy as I did before. So it's definitely the hardest matchup. And the reason, part of the reason is like, yeah, they're going to shift towards like the strawberry version where they just kind of ignore the 2k, the 1-mana 2ks, right? So I think, which is correct. Like if they ignore the 2ks, like usually they don't understand that like after 2ks hit, it's essentially done. So, but that doesn't mean this deck is now vulnerable. It means we just have to change, our play, and that's part of the adaptability of this game. Is like, if the players are changing the strategy, you must change your strategy as well. And I'll kind of go into how to play against the Whitebeard a little bit later. But yeah, Whitebeard is still the hardest matchup. Everything else has been more or less just like very straightforward and not much of a problem.
Okay, so let's talk about a couple example hands that you might keep or you might mull. Like, what are some stuff that you think you might like? A lot of people might think are keepable, but you would definitely mulligan.
Right. So let's just exclude the searches for now. Like if you see any of these going first, you're more or less keeping. Like you just want to fill in 1-drop, and obviously like it fills in, you get like to search whatever card you need. But other than that, like if you see any of these, I always more or less keep, because that's what we call playable hand. Like you fill in your 1-drop, and you're not losing card advantage. So but aside from this, going first. The reason I also have fun here is because like if you don't see your searchers, right, and you see this, at least it fills in the curve, and then you can have a searcher next turn. So these are keepable hands. You don't have to mulligan because you still fill in your 1-drop, and in turn 3 you have a searcher that can probably search on a searcher. So grading one of these is keepable. That's for going first. Other than that, like you just want to see like one of the 12 here as going first. Like just filling in the curve is actually a huge advantage, not skipping that 1-drop. And then sometimes, if you mulligan twice, you don't still see one of these. This is like the only other card I might play on turn 1, depending on the matchup, because, I can still use this effect later on if I drop a 1-drop next turn. But, we really don't want to go through this line.
Right. It's kind of a last resort.
Yeah.
Especially if you're playing against something that has Vista or Marco.
But going second is actually a big difference in how like a mulligan I want to search for. So yes, of course, like going second, you still want to see any of the 12 searchers, but keepable hands. Lately, like I've against Whitebeard, I've kept this going second because you just play on 2, and it becomes very very valuable. So going against Whitebeard, like if I see this and like a Zoro, I'm very likely to just keep, just because like. Turn 2, I want to play Garuda. Turn 4, I can like play this and play another 1-drop if I have to.
Right.
That way I can do 2 6s and then still have this.
Yeah, and then they always crack back on the Zoro rather than your life.
Right, exactly. So if they crack on Zoro, they can't start playing Marco to pop my Garuda, or they pop my Garuda, my Zoro lives. So these are very keepable hands against the Whitebeard matchup. The other like playable hands, I think you probably see me do on stream. It's playable, but I wouldn't keep it, but. You saw me like just turn 2, just play Sunny and play Makino. Like this is very, like it's what we call suboptimal hand, but it's still very playable, because what happens is like you're still setting up for this like combo where you pump up your Sunny, but if you have a Vista in hand to kill like the searchers, then Makino becomes like more valuable because they have to swing their leader on it, and then you still get the pump, and then you're not wasting Dawn on turn 2 because you still fit the curve. Ideally, you don't want to start with this, but if you have to, like this is a very good play. Against the mirror, sometimes they might fire fist you, but the mirror is like a horrible, like a different story, and you have to play differently. But overall, this is still a keepable hand going second, especially if you have like supporting like Marco's against the mirror is like amazing, or Vista against like Law. But these are like mulligan hand. You can keep, but if you want mulligan for better hand, like this is the reason why we play like 12 searchers, because like you're likely going to get a gap on mulligan.
Okay, awesome. Do you think because we are coming to the end of the format now, do you think in OP4 this version will be viable?
I haven't really tested too much OP04 yet, but I think it has a place. I know Zoro has a place in the format. I don't like. I think it'd be leaning towards the event Zoro because what I'm seeing, and I'm not for sure yet, but there's a lot of 5Ks coming back. So Fire Fist is a very good card to kill. Like I think it's like there's like the film Utas coming back, a couple of like 5K blockers. So you will need the Otama, the Fire Fist, the pistols to really clear the board effectively. So I think we'll see more event Zoro in OP04. However, I still want to kind of test this theory in like with the event list build because, but all I hear is like it's a slower format OP04. So definitely test it, but I don't know if it'll live just yet.
Okay, awesome. My last question is just going to be: do you think that there is like a counter to this deck? Do you think there's a way to play against this deck to counter it specifically? Like if they see that you play Nami turn 1 and they know you're playing this version, is there some way they should change their game plan?
Yeah, so part of it, like depending on the deck, but some decks are very strong, like Whitebeard, like a lot of them just ignore the peel and go face. And yeah, going face is very scary. I know Event Zoro, like they counter it, like Event Zoro is still, not a bad matchup, but like they can clear our board very quickly. And then their Marcos are living, or our Marcos are not living, because if they swing 8 into my Marco, I have to pitch 2 cards. If I swing 8 into their Marco, they can just pitch 2 bad cards. So, if you're a Venzor player, I mean, you can probably swing into this for free. They should like mostly go for face if you can clear the board more effectively. But there's really no hard counter. It's just more or less like if one side like draws badly and capitalize on just swinging face. So if I'm slow, I miss my turn 1. Maybe like you can just go fast to my face, and I can't defend because I just don't have enough like power to like counter the race. But that's why I picked it, because there's no hard counter. Like I said, it's low end, weak. It's weak for sure. It's probably one of the weaker decks because there's no like burst of power, but at the same time, there's no like horrible matchups. You always play in a game. Every match, like even the finals and a couple of the Wiper matchup, it comes down to 1K because like they swung wrong. I think in the finals I should have lost if the new gate swung into my Marco instead of the Zoro, and I was 1K short, right? So yeah, it's just like there's no bad matchups. Just very very fun to play because like you have to work for your win. You're not just like hoping on like like I have a radical, I'll just defend life and swing back. You have to work on each hit, each counter is 1K at a time. So
it really just is the most consistent deck, at least in my opinion. I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm sure you feel the same way.
Yeah, it's definitely the most consistent deck. There's like a lot of low ends, especially because like no one plays Sunny but me. So yeah. I mean, even playing Sunny on 1, like it's okay. It's not the end of the world, but like it's just for those games where you do brick, and if you're a different deck, you don't have this play, so that makes it a lot worse. And I've seen like in 10 rounds, like that's why I've consistently done well in a lot of events, because my decks are always consistent. I'm even now I'm surprised like I got first place here, because like the deck itself is good, but like there's not enough power and stuff. Like that's why I lose to Whitebeard sometimes, because like kind of like what we call a perfect curve Whitebeard can just stomp this deck because of its sheer power. But if you still work for it, you will get the results slowly, and that's I think that's what a lot of people don't like this deck, is because it's very weak, and then they just go, oh, I just lost because like I don't know how this deck wins, and they don't understand because it's not a straightforward deck. You have to really work hard for it, and that's what makes it fun for me, at least in this card game, is working for it.
No, that's awesome. Do you have any final words you want to say about it, or do you think you've covered everything?
I think I covered most of it. I mean, the only difference now is I just chose to go second in a lot of my matchups. I just felt like because my deck is so consistent, I want to make every other deck feel less consistent by going first. So that's the only reason I made them go second. And the extra card does help a lot. So going second feels nice nowadays. I know we're close to the end of the format, so definitely take this deck for a run here for locals or anything. I think it's a great way just to like learn the mechanics of the game, because what this deck does is like you learn the basics, not just like what a deck does, right? So a lot of decks are just like very straightforward. You play the game, you don't really learn anything. Whereas this, you learn the mechanics and what makes each card and each like deck good. So you get really like technical, and then that way you can start building decks and building, even playing other decks more like correctly, because you learn the basics of the game, not just play the deck and play the deck. So, but yeah.
Awesome. Sorry to cut you off there. It's just, I'm not sure if you guys know, but Richard does have a Metafy where he does coaching for people. And despite the fact that all 4 of the Luffys that he's won with Zoro, he also knows how to play other decks. So don't feel like you can only use his Metafy if you're playing Zoro. He has vast knowledge of the game. He's easily the most knowledgeable player I've ever met. But yeah, so I will have a link for his Metafy in the description of the video. You guys can check it out. Also a link to his Patreon where he's constantly posting new stuff there, so you guys can check that out as well. Richard, do you have any shout outs to anybody?
I mean, shout outs to Card for doing this and helping with the deck list. Shout outs to the Discord boys. Shout outs to my wife who takes care of my son so I can play. That's a huge one, because if she doesn't do it, then how will be taking care of my kid? She's very supportive, so that I can play these like 10 rounds every Saturday pretty much. So definitely shout outs to her. And yeah, overall, like, I enjoy this game, and like I'll probably see a lot more of me in OPO4 trying to brew up some nice deck lists.
Okay, awesome. Thanks a lot, Richard, and congratulations again on the win.
Thank you.